Saturday the 15th of April 2017, and it's Holy Saturday, last day of Lent, Easter Sunday tomorrow. I've been having an interesting week since I last spoke with you. I've had a week's annual leave, and I've been doing an awful lot of interesting bits and pieces, some of which I'll be able to talk about in this video. To begin with, my name is Gerard, or Peter, or Boniface. I'm a knitter and crocheter, a sewer and a weaver. I live in Abingdon in Oxfordshire in the UK. It's not as warm this week as it was last week, but we've had... Earlier today it looked as though it was about to start raining and actually didn't, but beyond that it's actually been quite a pleasant early April weather. Not hot, but warm enough that I've got the window open today. Blue skies with white puffy clouds, so that's very pleasant to look out on. Nice, clear, bright sunlight. Lots of spring flowers flowering. Crocuses and snowbells and bluebells have started joining the daffodils that have been out for quite a while. So everywhere is beginning to look happier and brighter. So, what has been happening? I think to kick off with, we'll start with the finished objects. I do have a couple of finished objects. One of which I'd started this time last week and finished it soon afterwards, and this is Henry the Hippo. Toby, come on, out of the way. On this side, that's right. Always wants to stand in front of the camera. So this is Henry the Hippo. Quite a nice little amigurumi. Blue, I don't know why blue, but that was the colour of the thread that was provided with the pattern. So there we are. I chose to use make his eyes with thread rather than safety eyes. I do have safety eyes, but then if I decide at some point to give this to a child, it's not going to be an issue. But rather pretty, I think. So he's currently standing on the corner of the table in front of me when I'm working away, so that's very pleasant. The other major thing I've finished this week is my mermaid tail cozy. I don't think I had cast this on last week at all, and if I had, I'd only done a very small amount of it. I used a knitting loom to make this. It's a 31 peg loom, and the starter peg here. So this peg opposite is the kind of extra peg. So there's an even number. And what I did was make flat panels. So I made 2 flat panels going round to here and then back again. So I never actually joined those 2 pegs. So those 2 pegs, there was always a gap between them, so that when you took it off the loom, it was a flat panel. And sewed them together and put some elastic in the top. And I'm rather pleased with the way it's finished. Although part of me thinks it also looks a little bit like the bottom half of a rocket, but that's just me. So it's large enough to fit a baby up to their armpits, and for a toddler to have their legs in when sitting on the sofa, so it will grow for a couple of years with a child. I've got 3 babies that I have things to make for, so this is the first, and it's got, this was an E-wrap stitch that I used, so called because when you wind the yarn around each stitch and then bring it to the next and bring it to the next and bring it to the next, if you look down on it from above, the plan view, it's a kind of letter E, so you're drawing an E, so you draw the wrap round and then that, so that's the E-wrap stitch, and it produces this rather attractive stitch pattern, which is very stretchy, as you can see, very, very stretchy, in both directions, and it has the effect, I think, of looking quite like fish scales. So I'm quite pleased with that. This is in royal blue. The next one I'm making will be in a kind of green, pale green. I've got a mint green, mint borderline aqua, rather. Sorry, I don't know why I'm suddenly yawning. No, it's 3 o'clock, that's why. The this is called Forget-Me-Not, the colour, but I don't think it is. The colour you're seeing on the screen is not that far removed. It's possibly slightly more green than you're actually seeing it. I think that's almost the green that the green blue that I'll be using. I know it's still a turquoise thing, but I think in a mermaid's tail it's probably fair to use an aqua-coloured yarn. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh dear. This suddenly happens to me at times during the day. I just suddenly become very fatigued and then wake up again. So there we are. So those are the two main finished objects, the little amigurumi and the mermaid's tail. I'm continuing work on a number of items, including currently warping up my loom, which I'll just turn and show you. Is currently sitting over there with the warp threads coming away. So it's half warped at the moment. I haven't completed it yet. I will be completing it, the warping later, and then moving on to the weft. The colours I've chosen, I want to talk about the weaving, but the colours I've chosen are these two. So there's a chocolate brown and this kind of sunshine yellow, daffodil yellow kind of colour. Again, the sun is washing the yellow one out a little bit. You're getting a bit too much bright. I do apologise. But I thought the two colours went quite well together. I'm making a log cabin pattern, which when finished will look like if you've had one of those chopping boards where you get the end grain showing, and you get the horizontal grain and then vertical grain and then horizontal grain and vertical grain, is going to be like that. And I think the brown and yellow go quite well together anyway. But I also thought this was quite an Eastery combination, because the brown is Easter eggs and the yellow is chicks. I was having a conversation with a friend about Easter eggs. There's been some furore recently about the Archbishop of Canterbury having a go at National Trust and Cadbury for having a Cadbury egg hunt rather than an Easter egg hunt, which, of all the things to worry about, seemed to me the oddest thing for the Archbishop of Canterbury to get involved in. I happened to be in Waitrose the other day, and I was standing in front of the Easter eggs, which, by the way, today have all gone from the shelves, even though it's Holy Saturday and Easter doesn't begin till tomorrow. You cannot buy an Easter egg for love nor money, which I find very odd that we have them in the shops from January all the way through Lent, and as soon as it gets to Easter you can't buy an Easter egg. But anyway, that's by the by. But the other thing about that is that none of them, not a single one of them, was marketed as an Easter egg. They're all marketed as chocolate eggs. I looked at every single egg on the shelf from lots and lots of different companies. There were two exceptions to that, and they were both the artisan, handmade, very expensive chocolate eggs with handmade chocolates in them. And they both called themselves Easter eggs. But the rest of them, exclusively chocolate egg, not Easter egg. And I personally don't have that much of a problem with that, because the egg is a fertility symbol. It's about new life. And that's how it's an Easter symbol, because Easter is about new life in the resurrection, and that's fine. And it's at spring, which is, the time of new life for the whole of the agrarian world. But it's a fairly pagan. I mean, even the word Easter comes from the pagan goddess of fertility at this time of year, rather than Pasch and Paschal, which is the sacrificial Passover festival of Easter. So it's, our language is I'm not making a very strong case here. I'm just saying I thought it was an odd thing for the Archbishop of Canterbury to be getting so worked up over, given that an Easter egg hunt is hardly a Christian pastime anyway. And maybe even Easter eggs don't exist and haven't existed in most people's lives for decades now. They're exclusively chocolate eggs. But I just thought I'd mention it. Nothing particularly serious. Because it's Holy Saturday, technically I'm a bit early because it should really be after sundown, but it is in the afternoon. I've been shopping for food, and I bought myself a gin and tonic, and I've put some Angostura bitters in there, so cheers. Oh, that's delicious. Anyway, so I thought the brown and the yellow went well together. I'm quite relaxed about the whole Easter thing, but I think they're a nice combination, and hopefully this time next week I will have a finished, well, I should have a finished fabric, and possibly even a finished item to show you based on the fabric that I make. I just want to talk about the weaving for a little bit anyway. It's taking me 3 hours to warp half of the loom this morning. So I've got another 2 to 3 hours to warp the second half. It'll get quicker because I'm getting into the groove of doing it. And that's before I sit down and actually start weaving the weft back and forth to complete the pattern. And it'd be very easy to say that that's an awful lot of faff that you have to do before you actually can sit down and just do the weaving, which is the thing that you want to do. But actually, the books I've read, the videos I've watched, all of the people in there talk about warping the loom as the beginning of the creative process, because one of the reasons it's taking longer to warp the loom this time is because before the first warping I did blocks of, well, I only warped half the loom to begin with, and I did blocks of 10 warp threads in the same colour, which meant I was just going back and forth, back and forth. Now, with the pattern I'm doing, the log cabin pattern, to make it work, I have to alternate the colour for every single warp thread. So I have to tie the warp thread to the back post first, then warp it through to the warping peg, then cut the thread once at the back again, then take one of the strands out of the hole or the slot and thread it through the next but one hole or slot, and then tie that to the back, and then start the whole process again. So I'm doing a lot more, physically doing a lot more to warp it. But I was watching a program that I had recorded over Christmas and hadn't actually watched, which was an archaeological dig in the Cambridgeshire Fens. And this is a hugely significant dig because what's been found is a very well preserved late Bronze Age village, which is approximately 5,000 years old. And it's so well preserved because it's been covered in brackeny water for the intervening 5,000 years. And therefore it's not oxidised, and so not just the metal implements they take them out of the ground and they are as shiny now as they were when they were made 5,000 years ago, but also the incredibly good preservation of what would normally rot, which would be wooden tools and worked bits of wood and equipment used in daily life that was often made of wood, and also, incredibly, some very, very large pieces of fabric. And in fact, what seems to have happened is that the village appears to have been built on stilts above the fens, and there's been a fire which has caused the buildings to collapse into the fens. So there's charred material alongside completely uncharred material. And the fabric specialist who was on the programme had taken a sample of the fabric that they'd found and had put it under a microscope to determine how good the fabric was and what kind of fabric it was. And she measured a 5mm section. In that 5mm section there were 13 strands. And that's mind-boggling really, because that's the quality of weaving that would take place in modern trousers on an industrial machine. It's taking me 5-6 hours just to. I'm using a 10-dent heddle, which means I've got 10 holes or slots per inch, and it's 16 inches wide. So that's 160 holes or slots that have to be threaded. And I've done half of them, and it's taken 3 hours. So I've threaded 80 of them in 8 inches. The equivalent for them, given that 5mm has got 13, would be 65 dent, and that's incredibly impressive capability. And one of the things I quite like about weaving, which I also like about knitting and about sewing and crocheting and all that kind of thing, but particularly about weaving, because I've talked about this with people from other countries or whose families are from other countries, and they can. A couple of people have told me they've seen their grandmothers doing this back home, either in Africa or in Asia, and this kind of process has been going on for thousands and thousands of years, and I quite like the fact that when I sit down to weave, I'm sitting down to take part in an activity which human beings have been doing really from the moment that they started to settle. And I just find that part of my mother's family came from Bavaria in the mid-19th century to Salford via Yorkshire, because they were weavers looking for work. So I'm also doing something which is kind of in my family blood as well. So it's something I as you're sitting there weaving, you think about these kinds of things, or as you're standing there warping the loom. So it's not just about the creativity in itself, but it's also about the tradition that you find yourself standing in. And tradition is an interesting word because it comes from the Latin traditore, to hand on or to hand over. And my kind of brand name is Hand-Me-Downs, which is handing on, handing over, is tradition. It's also, by the way, the same word that we use can be used about traitors, and the word traitor is someone who's handed over information, secrets, whatever. So both tradition and treason come from the same kind of root. But I quite like that handing on and being part of something that's bigger than yourself. It was something I also experienced when I was in the monastery, and I just thought I'd share that because I think it's important to understand your motivations and to acknowledge the debt that you owe to the people who came up with these ideas a long time ago, and we're still finding them incredibly fun and helpful and useful, so that's that. Anyway, so I'll move on to my next whip rather. This is a granny square, and it's made with 4 different colours. Yellow, well, to give them their proper names, if I've got the, I thought I had the labels. I seem to have misplaced the labels. Oh, well, not to worry. I thought I'd put them to the side so that I would know where they were. Well, they're yellow, green, white, and... Ah, there we are. I do have them. So we have yellow, lime, white, and aqua. And these are 100% acrylic. And this is the back panel of a cardigan that I'm making. I think I might have shown this last week. Possibly not, because I think I got these on the Sunday. But the pattern is for a cardigan for a child. And the acrylic, it's the Women's Institute, yes, there we are, and it's a very attractive yarn. It feels very soft. It really does feel very soft, and it's so easy to work. And I did that in a couple of hours, so I should get that cardigan finished this week as well. So hopefully that will be done. But I've got to make 2 more half grannies for the front, and then 2 smaller grannies for the 2 sleeves, and then and one for the hood, which is a 3/4. So it's a square, and then 3 sides done to a larger extent, so that the bottom side doesn't grow as much, and then it's sewn together various places, and that will be handed over to one of the parents of one of the children, or one of the people who's about to be a parent of one of the children. I've finished, a work in progress that I have been debating about whether to continue. I've got this Serdar wheel, and I've knitted a fair bit. I mean, 1.5 colours. No, just starting the 3rd colour. So 2 colours, and just starting the 3rd. And it's fine, and I quite like the pattern in that it's going to grow to be a very large triangle, which is why it's on large needles. Although it doesn't need to be at the moment, it will get larger. My only problem with it is it's all garter stitch, which means it's knit across and then turn over and knit across. And every 5 rows, after 5 rows, you make an extra stitch, so that's how it keeps increasing. But apart from that, it's just knit across, turn, 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 knit across, and it's just very boring. And I've discovered that I am pretty much a process knitter and not a product knitter. I don't care what I make, I care about the way in which I make it. I want to do things that stretch me a little, that are maybe out of my comfort zone, that keep me interested. And I think possibly if this were a self-striping yarn and not a self-blocking yarn, I might be inclined to carry on, because at least I'd have the novelty of the new colour every few lines. But it's not even that, and I'm finding it. Well, I suppose I should do some of that kind of thing, and I don't want anything that I'm working on to be. Oh, I suppose I should get down onto that then. So I'm thinking I will rip that out and start again. I've seen there are another couple of fairly straightforward but more interesting patterns available for the 150 gram balls, which is what that is. So I think I will rip that out at some point this week and start again. So that's more of a UFO, an unfinished object that will never be finished. I've also, if I can find it, yes, there we are. I've also cast on a pair of socks. These are toe up again, and I've done the toe, and I've started knitting in the round. And these are the colours. So it's red and burgundy and purple and orange, which sounds really quite frightful, but actually looks really quite nice. So I'm quite looking forward to finishing these. Again, I'm deliberately trying to move out of my go-to colours of turquoise and aqua. The reason the Granny Square cardigan is that colour is because that's the colours that the pattern recommends, so that's what I decided to do, and they do look good together, so I'm quite happy with that. So that's a work in progress that I've started, and that's one of those things that I'll be able to take with me to work and just do on the bus, because it's 44 stitches in total, it's 22 on each needle, so it's quite easy. It's fairly mindless knitting for most of it. Most of it is either going to be stockinette up the foot, or 2x2 rib. I may try the 3x1 rib, but probably, I don't know, I might stick with the 2x2 rib to the top. So the only bit you have to concentrate on is the toe, which is done, and the heel, which will come at the end of the foot. And apart from that, it's fairly mindless knitting, so I think it's one of those that I will just do as I'm travelling on the bus. So those are all my whips that I have to talk about. I have quite a few acquisitions, partly because Wendy, that terrible woman, took me to Mason's. We went to all three Mason's shops. I was very good and didn't buy anything in the fabric shop, didn't buy anything in the little bits and pieces shop that's next to the fabric shop. But of course we then went to the wool shop and I bought things. Which I'll talk about the things I bought today first. So I bought this pattern for this cardigan here. I mean, I can make the shorts, the vest version, as it were, but I quite like this cardigan. I don't know. Yes, you can see if I hold it closer. You see that it's got cabling up the front and up the arms, but it's a fairly straightforward knit from the pattern that I've looked at, and I'm going to be making it using this yarn, which is 100% acrylic. In fact, I think. Just double check. Oh no, sorry, it's 77% acrylic, 20% wool and 3% viscose. And it feels really very soft. It's very nice to the touch. And it's the Aran tweed base, as you can see. And I don't know what the colour is called. It doesn't seem to have a name for the colour. It's just... Yes, there's no name. It's just their rustic Aran tweed, and as you can see, it's this kind of turquoise green, teal really. I think teal is closer than turquoise, but it's got these lovely flecks of pale brown and darker browns throughout, and it's so it breaks up what would otherwise be. You don't want any yarn that's got too much in the way of variation, because you want the pattern itself to stand out in a cabled cardigan like this, but you don't want anything too flat either, so hopefully that's a happy middle choice. I love West Yorkshire spinners. Sorry, I didn't mention that this is the West Yorkshire spinners. Again, they don't give their colourways a name, but this is a 75-25. Sorry, no. Yeah, 75-25 wool to nylon mixture, and at least 35% of the whole content is blue-faced Leicester wool, which is one of the best for weaving and sewing and knitting and crocheting. And it's really soft and squishy. So I've used my other pair of socks is in the same base, but in the greens and yellows colourway. So this is a 4-ply. That was an Aran weight. This is a 4-ply. So this is more normal sock weight. So this will make lighter socks. It's 100 grams, which should make a whole pair. And again, it's the same base. It's 75-25, and 35% of it is blue-faced Leicester wool. It's rather. I really quite like the patterning in this. That it's both stripes and variegated, which I think will knit it to be quite attractive. And finally, today, I also bought another colour wheel because I quite like these colours, and I quite like that. We noticed in the shop that they put the wrong scarf on. The wrong this image should have been of this colourway, and the pattern that's printed on the inside of the label won't make this item. This item is made by the pattern that's in the colour wheel that I previously made the shawl in, so I can make that shawl from there as well. This is a scarf pattern that's in here, and I quite like the scarf, so I think I'll make the scarf rather than the shown item. It caused a bit of confusion in the shop. It took us a few moments before we realised what they were saying, that the pattern was correct but the image was incorrect. The image was the image from a different label, and so they've just made a mistake in the image that they put on. I've also bought... Well, I'll move on to the other yarn in a moment. I went I've been watching a few videos in the last week whilst working for crocheted items as jewellery, and I'm really quite taken by it. So I've got some filament thread arriving this week from Italy, and with that I've got some beads that will be used to make the jewellery as well. So I'm not going to say very much more about it at the moment. I hope that by this time next week, certainly by this time the week after, I will have made my first item, so I'll be able to talk about it far more then. It comes in a rather nice box anyway, so I just wanted to mention that. So I have bought a group of patterns that are based upon The Wizard of Oz. There's 4 patterns in the set, and I got a special offer, so I only paid £4 for the 4 patterns, so that's £1 a pattern, which is extremely good value. So they're all based on The Wizard of Oz, and this is the pattern called Somewhere, and I think we all know Somewhere Over a Rainbow, and hence they are a rainbow pattern sock. I don't have a larger photo, but I think you can probably see. The texture of the sock isn't particularly significant on this particular sock, it's more about the different colours. And as part of the special offer on this, I also got a coupon code to buy this fantastic set of yarns. Now these are all what they call mini skeins. They're technically hanks, but they're miniatures because they're only 20 grams each. So there are 10 different hanks, so that's 200 grams. That's more than enough to make 2 pairs of socks, in fact. So I'm looking forward to caking up these miniature hanks and turning them into the Somewhere socks. Then the second of the patterns was Just Follow, and again you can tell from the sock that what they mean is just follow the yellow brick road, the words of Glinda the Good Witch, or Glinda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz. And I don't know if this shows it well enough, possibly not, but we'll, yes, actually I think it might. You can just about see that the leg of the sock is actually made up of a series of bricks. So it's a yellow brick sock. And I previously had bought this yarn to make some socks, and I think this will go extremely well. It's slightly more golden, but it's a tonal yellow, and I think we'll make a very bright yellow brick road sock. And so the third pattern has now been released today, or yesterday I think actually. Toby, come on, out of the way, good boy. And that's called Emerald City. And the pattern on this is probably more visible on here. It's a fairly basic pattern, but then it's got these stripes going up the back. So it's a simple but interesting pattern. And I saw this, and it's coming across more blue on the screen. It's actually far more green than it's coming across. Maybe if I hold it a bit closer, you might see that it's coming across far more blue on there. This is West Yorkshire Spinners as well, and they're exquisite, which is 80% Falkland wool and 20% mulberry silk. So this is a woolen and silk blend. The silk is there like the nylon in the other blends to give strength to the toes and the heels. And this is their Savoy colourway. Why it's called Savoy, I don't know. I looked at a number of greens in Masons and wasn't really getting. They were all very flat colours. And Emerald City, this is a much more jewel-like tone. It's got a shimmer about it. As I'm looking at it in the natural light, it has a shimmer about it, which isn't transferring, I'm afraid, to the iPad images. At least not that I'm getting as immediate feedback. And I spent a good 10 minutes with the lady in the shop, and we looked at every single green, because my only concern about this is actually quite a fine weight. It talks about itself as being a lace weight yarn, which would be too thin, but at the same time, the needle size recommended, 2.75mm, is the size of needle I would use for making socks with 4-ply. So I think it's a nomenclature kind of issue rather than something I need to worry about. So I'm really quite looking forward to working with this because it just feels so lovely, which obviously with the silk as well as the wool, the choice of Falkland sheep. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to that. I'll let you know how it goes, obviously. Keep watching and you'll find out. So that's not quite all my acquisitions. I do have 2 others, but neither of which I can find. Oh no, 3 others. I'll talk about this one because it's immediately in front of me right now. This was an idea that came to me from one of the people who sold me yarn, which is little bags, little organza bags. I've got a pack of lots of different colours here, and fill them with the most beautiful scent of lavender buds. And not only does it make everything smell lovely, which it does, I love the smell of lavender, which I think probably in large part comes from the fact that my mother's favourite scent is lavender. She loves Yardley lavender and always has loved Yardley lavender. So it's obviously one of those scents that I associate with nice things, mother, and feeling all warm and gooey. But it also, so as well as imparting its scent, what it also does is it puts moths off. Moths do not like the smell of lavender, apparently. So I have already filled a couple, but I will be filling more of these bags and putting them in all of my storage containers. I'll also be putting them in the project bags that I've got, and also in my drawers and in my wardrobe cupboards, because they help to scent everything else. And there's just this lovely, relaxing, warming scent of lavender everywhere. So that's one little thing. And the lavender is surprisingly cheap. I think it cost, I got 500 grams and I think it cost me about £5, which is, I think absolutely fantastic, really. There we are. I've got one. I also bought this. This is a boy sock loom. It's a much finer gauge than my other looms, which are for knitting larger items, and indeed the mermaid tail was 2 pieces of DK together, held together, in order to produce a chunky yarn, basically to work on this size of gauge. On this size of gauge I can actually use, it's 7 stitches horizontally per inch, which means that I can use sock weight yarns, so the 4-ply and even lace weight yarn will work on this. It's adjustable in that you can take this out and move it along, so if you've only got smaller feet, so if you're making infant socks, for example, you only work up to this height and then back down again. However, me being me, 60 pegs, which is what there are, is absolutely the right size of sock for me. So I will be trying this out, seeing whether or not there's any gain over making socks the traditional way with needles, but I just thought it was something else to try. Again, this cost me about £10. It's a very durable plastic. They're metal pegs, which also helps. The tool that comes for lifting the yarn off the pegs over the stitches fits inside the groove, which is essential, and believe me, they don't always. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. I can't see what I've done with the other thing I wanted to show you. I thought I got everything ready, but it's just occurred to me that there's one thing that I haven't shown you. If you just bear with me a second. There we are. Found it. It's just a case of... Sorry, I'm having to duck underneath my warping as I go. I've got this Eucalam wool wash. Again, it's very slightly scented of lavender. You just use a small amount of this to hand wash items made with a large percentage of wool in them. For the acrylics, it's not necessary because acrylic will wash in the washing machine without any difficulty. But for example, the socks, which are 75% wool, this will help to relax the stitches so that they become more regular. But also, I would hand wash the socks and dry them with it, so that to avoid felting and to avoid shrinkage as well. So this is recommended by most of the podcasters that I follow. I think it's a French product, and it comes in a variety of, as well as the lavender version. It's a Canadian product, sorry, not French, but from Quebec. It comes in eucalyptus, grapefruit, and natural unscented, as well as the lavender. And it's a no-rinse wash, so it's a case of wash them out and then just... The best way to dry woolen items is to put them between two towels and press the water out. That gets rid of the excess water, and then just lay them flat over a board and let them dry naturally. So that's my other product. Right, well, that's everything that I wanted to show you this week. In terms of television, recommendations, I guess, and in terms of the television I've been watching, Designated Survivor had a new episode this week, and it was much better. I think it's back on track. I think more will become apparent. I'm still a bit concerned about the death of the Vice President and his wife, and the manner in which that happened, and therefore the kind of fanatical impulse that led to the Vice President's wife shooting him and then shooting herself. So I this week's was much better, although it was more in the mode of typical political drama in the line of The West Wing than anything else. I enjoyed watching Jesus of Nazareth. It's still a very, very good series. I mean, as I said before, there are things I don't necessarily agree with. It isn't a complete life of Jesus, because it's never intended to be that. What it demonstrates is more the historical milieu that Jesus operated in. It's a very well produced film, and I guess it's long television miniseries. That's what it would be, I guess. But I very much enjoyed watching it again, and it there's something about being familiar with something, and the enjoyment you get from discovering something new about something that's so familiar. The thing about this that I discovered from reading about it online, that I hadn't realised at the time and had never bothered bothered me since. When it was first made, there was no post-resurrection material at all, and that led to a number of American evangelicals boycotting it and getting their supporters to boycott it. And in response to that, extra scenes were hastily filmed of post-resurrection. Well, I say post-resurrection, ambiguous post-resurrection. And in fact, if you read the Gospels anyway, the whole post-resurrection scenes are themselves very, very much in a much more of a rush than and less of the detail, perhaps, that the life of Jesus had. And are also a little ambiguous as to whether or not these are remembrances of Jesus by his apostles after his death of things that happened before his death, or whether they are new episodes. So it was interesting knowing that there was this controversy when it was first made 40 years ago. Of course, I, at the age of 8, 40 years ago, had no knowledge of these controversies or interest in American evangelical Protestantism, so it was a controversy that passed me by, but it was interesting reading about it. Of course, later tonight, Doctor Who restarts, and I'm very much looking forward to that. A return of some old monsters and the advent of some new, which is always what's on offer with Doctor Who. Peter Capaldi's final series, which is a shame, but, you know, will survive. He's not the first Doctor I've seen come and go. I think that's probably it in terms of TV. I've been watching an awful lot of YouTube, so I don't watch that much TV, but I did mention to Wendy that I would talk about my bookends. This is one end. These were bought for me by my mother from a shop in Carnarvon, just opposite the castle, when I first joined the monastery. And she bought these for me. Actually, I took her on holiday after my father died. It was 2 years after I joined the monastery. Sorry, it was a bit dusty. And I just loved them, and she wanted to buy me something. So this is an old man, an Anglo-Saxon man, from the designs, with his dog at his feet, sitting there reading and laughing out loud at something he's read in his book. So that's at one end. At the other end, whoops, that's not going to fall, no. At the other end, we have his wife with her cat fast asleep on the arm of her chair. She's trying to read and she's shushing him from laughing out loud. They're made from pewter and they're really very attractive. I've had these now for 25 years. It was 1992, so yes, it's 25 years since my father died. And I love them. So they sit at either end of my bookcase, and every so often I just look across at them and remember and smile. So that's just thought I'd share what they were. Yes, so I think that's probably enough for today. I'm sorry it's been a bit rambly. I was feeling fine right up until the moment I sat down, and then just wanted to sleep the whole way through this. So I'm hoping that you don't feel the same way. If you do, so be it. Anyway, before I sign off, thank you for spending some time with me. If you're a new viewer, thank you for checking me out, and I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen. If you haven't already, please subscribe. That way you'll be notified when I upload a new video. I'm operating on a weekly basis at the moment, and I don't see that changing for any reason for the time being. If there's anything you want me to talk about, please let me know in the comments section or just direct message me. I can be found on Instagram and Ravelry and Facebook using the name Hand-Me-Downs, where the E is replaced by a 3 and the S by a Z. But all the information is down below. I tend to be most active on Instagram at the moment because a lot of what I'm now doing is quite visual. So I find that Instagram is a good way of sharing the colours and the textures with people who are interested. So anyway, as I say, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and have a very happy and peaceful Easter, and stay happy and well until next week, and I'll see you again soon.